Everyone. My name is Mariana Ramirez, and I'm the director of the Schnitzer Museum of Art here at Portland State University. And welcome to one of our biggest in-person lectures that we've been able to have since the pandemic. I'm so excited to have you all here. I am very excited to have you come for our lecture today with Chris Antemann, one of the artists featured in The Art of Food, which afterwards we'll have a reception with food and drinks, and I hope you'll join us for that. We are so fortunate to have the opportunity to share this beautiful exhibition from Jordan Schnitzer's collection. I am so grateful to Jordan Schnitzer and the Harold and Arlene Kerr Foundation for supporting not only this lecture, but all of the programming this season. So Jordan, thank you so much. This is because of you. I would now like to invite Jordan to come up, say a few words before we ask Chris to join us.
So before I talk about Chris for a second, we have a legend in the room. He'll be embarrassed, but James Reed, will you stand up for a second? Jim? Stand up. Okay, now. So who is he? He was the master printer at Gemini GEL in Los Angeles on Melrose Street. And you were there for 22 years, was it? 35 years. So, for instance, for me, one of the reasons I love works on paper is the collaboration between the artist and the amazing print houses. Now, obviously, many artists do their work in their own studios, but most of them, since the post-World War II period, have worked with some of the phenomenal print publishing operations around the country. And therefore, for me, I put the printers on a pedestal because they with the amazing artists are the magicians that take the ideas the artists have and convert them into the phenomenal works that we see. And I visited Jim for years when I'd go to Gemini on Melrose and see him. And it was interesting. He said, once I'm going to come up to Portland and spend more time. I said, that's great. He said, my daughter is going to apply to PNCA. I said, that's wonderful. A few months later, I saw him, and I said, gee, what's happening? He said, well, my daughter didn't quite get enough scholarship, and so I guess we're not coming. I said, well, we're pretty close to PNCA. Let me make a call or two. I said, your history and as a master printer and the stories you have about Ellsworth Kelly and Rauschenberg and everybody big are amazing. Would you ever mind coming and giving some talks and lectures? Called Tom Manley. Next thing you know, he came up. A little more scholarship money became available, and his daughter graduated from PNCA. And then the next big event in our lives was that, as a printer, he gets a printer proof. So he had an amazing collection of 650 works over the years he was there. And he asked for some help about how to sort of monetize that. And I said, Jim, this collection should really be kept together. So we sort of negotiated a bit and went on a 12-year payment plan, and so I'm indentured to pay every month, and we kept the whole collection together, which we're honored to have. And to you, Jim, and your counterparts across the country that have helped expand the works on paper and do things that never was done before, we're just also indebted. Yes, the artist is the big shot, but in the end, behind the scenes, the people like you make the work come alive. So thank you so much, and thanks for visiting Portland. Two other people real quick. Sue, do you want to stand up a second? Yes. So there's an amazing organization in New York and Brooklyn now called Do DNA, and it works handmade paper. So they bring all these artists in, they make the paper and get artists to do phenomenal work, but also the main program is for kids and other people in the community to do their work. So she's out today, and they're doing a 50th anniversary show, and they're coming to look at the works we have on handmade paper, which I didn't know how many there were, but actually there are 1,000 we have. So she's got her work cut out for her to pick which things, which we're delighted to help support the program. So if you're ever in New York and Brooklyn, they have a phenomenal facility, and it's pretty fun seeing how they make paper. Anyway, now let's get on with the star today, and that's Chris Antemann. I don't quite remember, I should have asked you how my mother found you, or you found her, but all I know is my mother said to me, 15, 18 years ago? Do you remember, how long ago was it? 2011, she said, Jordan, I just met an artist that is unbelievable. I just love everything she does. And my mother had a phenomenal eye. It was funny over the years, after she closed the gallery and turned it over to Laura Rousseau, I'd come to Laura Rousseau's a couple days before an opening. And I'd see some work, and I'd say, gee, Laura, I'd like that one. She says, it's already taken. I said, I'd like this one. She said, I'd like this one. She said, it's already taken. I said, don't tell me my mother got here before I did. Okay. So my mother had a wonderful eye, and obviously I'm always indebted to her opening that art door for me. So once Chris came into our lives, my God, the next thing I saw was the most phenomenal piece on the dining room table that was about 3 feet long with amazing little figurines, and you look at it and it just takes you on this journey. And so we've done a number of things with her. She was born in 1970, and I usually talk extemporaneously, but her career, if you look at this, and what was one thing that was confusing is, you got your degree from the University of Minnesota in a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Ceramics, but then you went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. These states that have these funny names of different states, whatever, but you got your master's at the University of Pennsylvania, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And then I think the next big step in your life was really the encounter with Meissen. And you've had a wonderful partnership with them, and you've created some phenomenal things. But what I've always loved about her work, and my mother did, and I think everyone, is the way she uses this technique, this European technique of ceramic figurines, and then she does things that just are beyond comprehension. And you're so talented. And the fact that she's in Joseph, Oregon, where there's a foundry and an art community there, is wonderful. She has pages of exhibitions and collections, and we're just so proud to have you in our collection and at this show. What's interesting is we started investing in Tucson about 10 years ago, and one of the reasons was the University of Arizona, which has 52,000 students. And a key to that economy there, it's about 1 million population, is the university, just as in Portland State being so important to Portland. And come on up, there are a few more seats up here, Steve and others. So we met the university folks, the president and provost and so forth, and went to the art museum, and nice facility. And I said, gee, since we're coming to Tucson, we'd love to do any exhibitions you want. Next thing I knew, by gosh, you want to stand up and say hello? Okay. Oh, this is Olivia Miller, and they came up to Portland to look for a show and go through our binders in the warehouse and whatever. And when you came up with the exhibition, it was Art of Food. I thought, oh God, what a stupid title. And then suddenly I saw the work they were picking, and it was phenomenal, incredible. And it was obvious to me, as it was to her, that every big artist has used food in their work. So the fact then that, in addition to Lichtenstein and all those big names out there, that they picked some local artists who I think are just as good as anything anywhere in the world, was really a delight for me. So with that, Chris, thank you for being in Oregon, staying in Oregon, being the artist you are, and just every time I look at your work, and I know all of us will, you again take us on a magical journey away from where we are into the creations that you've made. So you're a superstar, and we're just honored to have you in the collection and in this exhibition.
Thank you. As Jordan said, I drove here today from Joseph, Oregon, and we've got a lot of wildfires, so apologize for my smoky, scratchy voice. I live on the east moraine of this beautiful lake, and my husband, Jacob Haslacher, found this property in 1999 before we had this threat of wildfires. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed today. Joseph is named after Chief Joseph, who's the leader of the Wallowa band of the Nez Perce, and did a lot of work to create peace in the area. My journey to Oregon began at the Archie Bray Foundation in Helena, Montana, where I was a long-term resident, and now I'm a board member. In Montana, I couldn't help. I had come right out of grad school from Minneapolis to Montana. I couldn't help exploring this idea of the relationship of the horse and cowboy. And I also had seen my first mountain goat, so the Three Graces and Fancy. And then also the bluebirds, Western bluebirds, like in Disney, they were there. And we also have them in Joseph, Oregon, too. And so that's where I met my husband and learned about his dream of a residency program to bring artists who work in clay to Joseph, build some kilns, and bring community and artists together. This, I had to share the Smoky. This is what it looks like right now. The LH was his family's brand in a cattle ranch outside of Denver, Colorado, and it was his aunt, Liska Haslocker, so LH. She loved the ranch and the ranch life. So when she passed, she helped endow the LH project for future artists to come and work there. So he wanted to carry on the name for her. Little nice sunset alpenglow shot from the kilns. And the newest project we have going on at the LH right now is a group of Korean artists and an exchange from the Korean Cultural Craft and Design Foundation, and our friends Han-chun and Sung-koo and Soo-jong. So the first idea was to have a teacher and student. So we have former student who's now a professor inviting his teacher, who's a master moon jar maker, to come and work together at the LH. And this is the kind of thing that Jacob always wanted the LH to be, was a place where something greater than just the art could happen, but collaboration and friendship. So for 40 years, they hadn't worked together, and they were back united just in July. Our first artists since the whole world shut down. And what I love about having my studio in Joseph at the LH project is I'm not alone there. I have different artists coming from different places, and this is very inspirational. And it also was really a place where my work took on more personal themes. And as I researched the 18th century history of porcelain, everything 18th century really, Baroque, I started bringing those elements into the work. And so you see this Western bluebirds again on proposal. It was a proposal of happiness. So. And then food came in. And the food came in 18th century with banquets first, and then what's on the table. This is the first dinner party I ever made. It's at the Museum of Art and Design in New York, and it's Lust and Gluttony. Food, yeah, 18th century, sculptural, stacked, colorful, not always edible, might look edible, things made of sugar and all kinds of different pastes. And 2011, yeah, I met these lovely two and really changed my world. It was during the 2011 Contemporary Art Awards at the Portland Art Museum, and Arlene's deal was, I want one of the banquets. And I had like 3 weeks to make the thing. So she wanted it, and that's how I got into the show, by making the piece. But what I wanted to say about Arlene is, I loved the relationship she had with her son, and how, as Jordan already said, how they encouraged each other, but also were slightly competitive in collecting. And for an artist, that level of support and that like love of the art and love of supporting artists, it just makes you want to run back to the studio and get going. So it's just on a whole other level than some other collectors. It was also Arlene's laugh that, and the gentle questions she'd ask that were thought-provoking, but she was so gentle in the way she would, what do you think about the piece? And what were you thinking? Are you happy with the way it came out? Just always sending me back to the studio. So I miss her, and I'm so grateful for her and grateful to you, Jordan. Contemporary Art Awards. So there's the installation, and then this is the piece that was on Arlene's table for many years. And in addition, the support that Jordan and Arlene both gave me led to other support, because when I was working with the Meissen porcelain manufactory in Germany, I had been invited right around that time of the Northwest Art Awards, and they weren't so sure about this American coming in. So I was like, I want to make a chandelier, I want to make this, and I went kind of crazy. But when Arlene was saying, I want a chandelier, or when Jordan was saying, oh, you're back in the US, make me a garden, then I was suddenly supported in other ways that just helped. And in addition, I was so lucky to go to Sitka. Thank you, Jordan. This was amazing. Never made a print in my life, and I loved it. I loved Julia DeMario, and working one-on-one with artist to printmaker was a very special experience, and this is what I did. I had to start with what I know. So these figures and their relationship with food. This is, caught in the act of impropriety because you don't eat with your hands. It's a lamb chop, so difficult without that, and tasty morsel. So the oranges were a big thing in the 18th century, orangeries, and how do we get this citrus? You have to grow it yourself in the cold, dark Prussia. And then my favorite, Gainsborough, had to do some sort of self-portrait about this piece, Perdita, because it's already a portrait of a woman playing a character. And I thought a lot about, as an artist, how I see myself in some of my characters, but in other times it's just a character that is interesting or fun to put on. Celebrating a decade at Meissen this year, which is kind of unbelievable. It's been life-changing and a wonderful ride. I'm trying to get back there before this show closes in February of next year. But it began really in 2012, so right after Northwest Art Awards, I went to Germany and got started. And I had only ever made unique pieces. Meissen wanted me to make limited editions, and I wasn't even sure what that meant or how it would be. So I started with uniques. And then because my work does take the 18th century figure and shift it, twist it, turn it on its head, make her the life of the party, they started to understand, you're rooted in our history, you're rooted in our archives. Can I make a chandelier? Well, okay, we'll give you the parts. Put my figures on and started to work with a team to get these things built. And then came this whole collaboration. What is this? How beautiful to have a family build this relationship with people and care about each other, where the work is now ours, our babies, and we care about it. And even if my name ends up on it when it goes out in the world, they don't care. When we're together, it's ours. So after the chandelier, I got brave, and I said, I want to make this huge temple, love temple. And when I told Arlene about it, she said, it has to debut in Portland at the Art Museum. I'm going to call Bruce Gunter and Brian, and it's coming there. So with the help of Arlene and Jordan, it debuted in the US and then traveled to 5 other venues across this country and back. And it was really proud for me because I grew up in New York and Pennsylvania, but I'm a goner now, and I wanted to show in Portland. So I was very lucky to have a second show in the Portland Art Museum. Forbidden Fruit was all about paradise and food, and you can see these fruit pyramids might look familiar when you see the show, but these are the unique ones, because I was sneaking up on Meissen with this limited edition thing I'll make a unique first. If you like it, we can turn it into a limited edition, but bigger. Always lobbying for bigger. And then I ended up going to Russia and meeting a wonderful woman who convinced the Hermitage to show Forbidden Fruit and convinced Meissen to help fund it. So 2019, right before everything shut down, I was standing in the Hermitage with the pieces, and they completely encased them in glass, which was a little crazy, but they have so many visitors, they can't not do that. And back to the pyramids. So in thinking about the fruit pyramids, I realized that Meissen had never made a fruit pyramid, but they made the baskets, but never the fruit. But they occasionally cast single fruits. And they were cast from fruits from Augustus the Strong, the founder of Meissen, from his orangerie. So like miniature pineapples, they had this old mold of a tiny pineapple. And so that we're going to do the fruit pyramid and we're going to cast from life, just like they did in the 18th century, which is something that always seemed to work in Meissen. If we did it before, we can do it again. So we went into the archive and got the basket. I made a new base for it. So these are just the unique ones. Everything that I do with my team is fired with everything else in Meissen. And I always love this, to see it all mixed together in production, because production is running regardless of what's happening. Then everything's hand painted. And I'm always trying to convince them, can we try it? Can we try it? And they don't like to touch it till it's finished, but I got them to do it for the picture. And I work with a team of painters. So this is the flower painter. That's what she paints. She specializes in it. At 10 years, you're a master. So they've been teasing me that it's a decade now I'm a master, but of what? Because I do a little bit of everything, but nothing, only nothing. Without them, nothing. And then they taught me everything about the color and different tricks of applying it, because it's a overglaze made with metals in an oil on a slippery glaze, like vertical. So it slides down. They have some tricks. And then the finished piece. So because of the reaction to these, because I think we all love trompe l'oeil, I do, we did the limited edition immediately after. And we knew we would have the unique ones traveling. So of course, Meissen's a business. How can we sell these? I'm like, no, don't sell them, because I need them for the show. It's going to go for 3 years. I'm like, 3 years we have to wait? So we made the limited edition, as well as a limited, there they are, as well as a limited edition chandelier, which was thanks to a couple of collectors, including Arlene, for wanting them. And then Meissen thought, let's do one limited so we can keep making it and selling it. We don't need you every time. And then I started mixing it up. So in this case, the ship is unique. The smaller pieces are limited editions. So we have something for a collector who wants a unique item, and then something for smaller collectors who like to collect multiple pieces. And the story of this is, it's La Maladie. It was Augustus the Strong felt he had like porcelain sickness, La Maladie de Porcelaine. He wanted porcelain. He couldn't get enough of it, so he made his own manufactory in Meissen, Germany. And I thought if he could have, he would have hand-carried all those pieces. His love was so great, or sent someone. And that was the first idea. Then, who gets it at the shore? You've got the couple that collects, you've got the little maid that has to deal with all these dishes. She's not the collector, but the one that cares for them in the pantry, and so on. And then how do you get it from the ship to the shore? You've got adrift and afloat. So I wanted to use the sailing terms, and then when I came across those two, I grew up sailing with my father, and those words are the good ones. Because adrift is not so good. Afloat is good. So he's adrift, she's afloat, and you know. And then occasionally I was always trying to convince Meissen, like, let me put figures on a tureen. So they finally gave me a tureen that I could put some figures on. And this, for some reason, I think I have some like affinity to 1750s, which was the height of Meissen's, sculpturally, the height of Johann Candler, their biggest, most renowned sculptor. And this was his service that he designed. And then, of course, Meissen, can I please make a dessert set with my figures painted on there? So now I have this limited edition of dessert set. So then the vases, which is a whole other category in Meissen, they're like, but you're in figures. I want to put figures on vases. Okay, go to the archive, get the forms. These were ready to go to be built, and we all got home and the world shut down. So I remotely communicated with my team, since we were together for 10 years, we were so close and we trusted each other enough that I could send some scribbles and drawings and hand painted all of these vases. And then shows were being canceled, things were happening. I couldn't go to Germany. I was worried about what should I do. And I received an invitation from Rebecca Tillis, the curator at the Hillwood Estate and Gardens in DC, to do centerpieces. Oh, and can we show one of the Little Meissen pieces as well for Luxury of Clay, the history of Marjorie Post's porcelain collection. And so I was like, centerpieces, you got me with that. First one for the breakfast room with Catherine the Great's chandelier. I thought, okay. So I looked at the gardens. Here's a detail. So this one, because I had made Jordan's garden was the first one I'd made. And I always thought, oh, yeah, I want a puzzle, make it more of a puzzle next time. So looking into Hillwood's gardens, first they have all these cool sculptures and sphinxes, like weird 18th century ones, not Egyptian ones, and a little French parterre garden. So I told them it's going to be a portrait of that garden in porcelain, in pieces that puzzle together. And I could make some sphinx, which was so much fun. And Diana. But really, I knew about the 16-foot dining table that they had there because my friend Bauke de Vries showed his War and Pieces there a couple of years ago. I was like, what about your big dining room table? Oh, yeah, you want to make something for that? Yes, 8 feet long, 4 feet tall, 2 feet wide. I still am not sure what was going through my head, but I had been locked down. And I needed to just build it. So this is in Hillwood, in the dining room. I matched the glaze to the chairs. We showed some Jacob Petit French plates with it from her collection. Everything was pink. And I just took this show down, so this one is looking for the next location. But there's the dining, 16-foot table. Could have even gone longer, I think. And when the crates shipped, I don't know if you remember about our winter. It was the snowstorm of the century. Whole other thing. So in looking always back to Meissen, this Temple of Honor, which Augustus the Strong built for his son's coronation, he wanted his son to marry a royal, so he bought him the seat for the King of Poland and had a beautiful coronation with this huge piece that I used as the inspiration for that one. And always looking at etchings. Now I look at them differently, and engravings since going in printmaking. Looking at these, taking the 2D, stripping it apart, putting it through the computer to get the scale, because this thing had to be planned. It can't just be something that happens spontaneously in the studio. So 3D printing for the first time. These are the 3D renderings. And I had been thinking, well, the original was so masculine. I've really got to make this feminine and delicate. And then I get these 3D printing drawings. I'm like, now they're more masculine again. Okay, let's go back. So adding clay, softening them up. 50 molds were made to build this piece. And even though Meissen repeats me in the limited edition, I don't. But I had to make, because I was alone, I couldn't have an assistant, and I had to make like 4 of each different column. I don't even remember how many arches, 12 arches. This was the only unique part, the dome. And then I got that all finished, and then I had to still make a 6-foot-long banquet, the longest ever. But I knew how to do this, but it just was time-consuming. And there's the food. The best part is the food, because you know you're close to the end. Matching the pink. And here are all the parts spread out. So everything was threaded into wooden bases so it would be secure. last piece I made was a mini chandelier that was a joy because I could fit in the palm of my hand. There it is in the LH studio. So since we couldn't have artists, I could actually use that space because my studio didn't have enough space to build something so big. And there I was when it finally finished. At 9 months it took to build this and the garden piece. And I'm really looking forward to going back to the studio, as always. So thank you all so much, and thank you, Jordan.
Great. Chris has offered to take on a few questions from the audience. So if you all have any, if you'd like to stand up or raise your hand, I'll call on you right over here.
How do you know when you're finished?
Exhaustion? No. I plan everything, so I suppose I could always put a little more gold, but yeah, it's planned. It's done, and right, got to get it finished. Actually, it's the museum. They start calling. I'm like, snowstorm. Can't do anything.
Another question?
Yeah. How often does something break?
It happens. I try to be very careful, but occasionally that's one thing that's nice about using some molds, even if there's added handmade elements, because I can remake it. But yeah, I pack with a lot of foam, so I avoid a lot of breakage that way. And otherwise, if you think about porcelain cups, they're thin and delicate, so that's hard, or that's easier to break. My work is thick. Even at Meissen, they taught me a lot about the sculpture, that to make it thick, they're heavy, they're not going to break. And even in considering like how thick or thin a leaf is, or the petal of a flower, where it's placed, how the hands or fingers are, the gestures and how they're placed, so that you wouldn't just like bump into it if you walk by the piece. So some of those considerations have just taken some years and accidents to learn. But I hope that these pieces can continue to be shown and be seen, so I don't want them to be so fragile that they're too delicate.
Back here?
So each piece is handmade from porcelain?
Yes.
I'm Allison with the Sitka Center.
Hi, good to see you.
Yay,
Sitka!
I'm so excited to see your work alongside Warhol. I'm wondering if you have
Thank
been
you.
thinking, or how you
Oh,
think
yeah.
about your
Oh, yeah.
work
Of course.
in relation to other artists whose work is additioned or series, in addition to the prints you did with.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting. I mean, Warhol is from Pittsburgh. I'm from Johnstown, right outside of Pittsburgh. So I feel a kinship with him. And always, just as a young artist, we would go to the Albright Knox Museum. And once we went for some kind of opening, and he was there. I don't know if you were with me. My old childhood art friend is here, by the way. So she remembers some stuff I don't. But he was in there, and we were fascinated. But yeah, I mean, genius stuff. But so of course they're like, oh, is it okay if we put your fruit pyramid on the window with the Warhol soup cans? Well, can you imagine? I was like, sure, of course. So yeah, it's I think it's incredible. I'm so excited to be a part of the show.
Yes, sir, right here.
Hey, really beautiful stuff. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about some of the themes of the work. I mean, the process is amazing and the technique is astonishing, but thematically there seems to be a whole lot going on.
Oh, did I skip all that? Yeah, that's all. That was the other lecture. Yeah, sorry. So these figurines are on pedestals and decorative objects on the banquets, and then put away in the pantry to be brought out again and placed amongst whatever else on the table. And sometimes painted in the costumes of the time, or like a masquerade type costume thematically, but decorative objects. So I just wanted to break that figure off of that pedestal, throw her own party and also play a little bit with the little maid is on the table. So there's these kind of cheeky characters, or I call her the disrupting little maid. She's always up to something. And then there's like the bored hostess who's given too many parties and can't engage anymore and is just kind of daftly looking out with her glass to the crowd. And then, of course, the male as +1 and the male as the vulnerable nude comes from art history and all just the countless female nudes. I just wanted to shift it around a little bit and play with that. But I also like to play with the idea of paradise and that one bite of an apple can lead to so much. But a lot of it is, from my own life experience and just wanting to play around with that. And I like to hide it in there, so I think I forgot that part because I was wrapped up in the people. I've been thinking a lot about the people who have supported me and who support me because I haven't seen Jordan in a long time and I hadn't seen Arlene. So I apologize for that.
Have any other questions?
It's breathtaking. It's so beautiful. I was struck also by the sort of modern quality of the faces in particular. Like there's the Baroque stuff, the faces are so dainty, but yours have this striking, almost modern features. Is there a particular model that you use, or is it from your own mind, or is that even a question?
No, I think it's a style. I wasn't classically trained in the figure, and I just discovered the figure out of making figures, and they were more abstract, and they got to be a little bit more refined, and then often there's a portrait, and sometimes from a painting or a friend or a character. So that's where they come from.
Thank you. Jordan, you had a question?
What are you working on next? And what challenges you? What have you dreamt about you want to tackle?
I'm making some tulipiers with translucent breaker tulips, red and white. Blue and white tulipiers, but I'm gonna, just like with the fruits, I'm making the tulips in porcelain. So it'll be complete. Because who can keep a tulip alive for very long? And also more vases. So this, instead of, the Meissen vases were based on the Meissen archival, really old 1750s vases. And the ones I'm working on here are based on Sèvres French, really curvy, lovely with figures. And so that's what I'm doing right now in my studio. And we're having some more Korean artists come, so I'm curious to see how that will be to work with them and what kind of exchange will happen.
Do you have any other questions? Well, wonderful. Chris, thank you. Give another round.
Thank you. Thank you so much.